Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Flight 918. We ask that you please fasten your seatbelts at this time and silence your phones for the duration of the flight. We will be experiencing significant turbulence during this flight, so we please ask that you pay close attention to all crew member instructions.
Sorry I'm late. I was parking the last car. It's what CFOs do when they have to. We all know about the epidemic involving drugs, but we may not know, or we may be numb to how bad it is. Measured by its most tragic outcome, it's getting worse by an accelerating rate. In the 18 years between 1999 and 2016, drug-related deaths averaged 30,000 a year. In the 5 years between 2016 and 2021, drug-related deaths averaged 80,000 a year. And last year, 2001, there were 107,000 drug-related deaths. Why? Certainly, fentanyl is moving to the top of the list, but also untreated mental health issues continue to contribute significantly. 50% of those people diagnosed with a substance use disorder also have a co-occurring disorder like PTSD, anxiety, depression, but only 7% of these people get both conditions treated. But this isn't a meeting about statistics. This is a session to talk about people and lives that are impacted by these tragedies. But the point from the statistics is that we have a mountain to climb. We're here to talk about a life journey through the metaphor of a flight. We know life is a series of tests. When you take these tests in school, it's all about the grade or pass-fail. But this isn't about that. It's about what you learn after the tests that you encounter in life and how you grow from those tests. Cammie and I married 15 years ago. And during this time, I've seen her, this remarkable woman, grow in so many ways and be tested time and time again. 2 years after we were married, we had a home invasion. I say we, I was traveling, she was held at gunpoint by 3 youth from the wrong side of town. After that situation, she was afraid of her own shadow. She wouldn't go to the store, she wouldn't pump her own gas, she wouldn't do anything. But then she discovered Usher's New Look, a foundation which helps inner city youth stay on a straight path and avoid becoming the next generation of home invaders. She joined the board, and this month she'll become the board chair. That is learning and growing from a test. But this is the story about another test, the worst test that you can have as a parent, losing a child. Unfortunately, there are hard and sad parts to this story and lots of turbulence. But as this journey continues, it becomes a story of hope and optimism, and that is what we want you to leave with today. Thank you.
One day, God decided to launch an airline, the first of its kind. Every city will be serviced, and every airport is convenient. You can fly anywhere your heart desires. And while you may not arrive on schedule, you always arrive on time.
This was my first flight. Well, my first of this kind. Normally, when I travel, I would take all the things a girl needs. A 10-day trip needs 20 days worth of clothes. However, there was something different about taking this flight. Everything can be calm, and suddenly, things change.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your pilot speaking. We have now reached 10,000 feet in the air. You are here because you have somewhere to go. This trip will not be easy. There is great turbulence ahead.
What brings you here?
I have 3 months to live.
What are you doing here?
I lost my entire family to a fire.
What's your reason for being here? Why are you on this flight?
My son.
One day, God decided to launch an airline. Every city will be serviced. Every airport is convenient. You can fly anywhere your heart desires. And while you may not arrive on schedule, you will always arrive on time. There's one thing that separates God's airline from its commercial competitors. Every ticket is free, but it will cost you everything. This airline wasn't built to safely deliver you to your destination. This airline was built to transport you to your purpose. This is my first flight. Well, my first of this kind. I spend a large part of my life on commercial flights I don't want to take. Obligations and opportunity place you 30,000 feet in the air when just hours before you were relaxing at home. Everything can be calm, and suddenly things change. God's airline is different. Some layovers last for days, some for months, some for years. You never know where heavenly airlines will take you. All you know is you will arrive at your destination on time. There are unscheduled stops. There is a city called joy, one called happiness. Success and wealth are favorite stops, but there are also places no one wants to go. Places like disappointment, despair, sickness, and poverty. Forgiveness can be a difficult stop. So can reconciliation. But the hardest of them all is a city called grief. There is no way you can know where you'll be at any given moment. You just know that what surprises you never surprises God. Your trip has been well planned. I settled in my seat and reached for a wrinkled magazine in the pocket in front of me. On it were the words, Heavenly Airlines, Who We Are. One paragraph caught my attention. It read, "Some choose to fly with us, but most are chosen." You may start off alone or with traveling companions, but those who start the journey with you may not be with you in the end. Many decide to stay at different stops along the way. You will meet new people on your travels. New relationships will form. Old ones may fade. The place a plane touches down may be your friend's final destination, but you may still have a way to go to reach your place of purpose. Your trip is personal. I thought. Throughout the years, my journey took me places I cannot explain. The highest of joy to the deepest despair. Reality is not big enough to contain what happened. There is no word in the English language that describes losing a child, orphans lose their parents, widows lose their husbands, but nothing explains the death of your child. Our most debilitating experiences sit inside of us, wordless. There is no language down there. There are no catchphrases that accurately point others to the spot bleeding in our very souls. We are left with vanilla expressions to describe a colorful pain. Losing Christopher was an out-of-body experience. It requires an out-of-body explanation. So come with me on this journey. Come with me as I board the flight.
I got to take this in for a second because this has been a long time coming. It's been a lot of work to get here, and I want to thank everybody that did so much to make tonight happen. I wish that you all could have known Christopher, and I know a lot of you here did. And like every single child, he was incredibly special. A contagious smile, a huge hugger. If you met Christopher, he hugged you, whether he knew you or not. And Christopher had big goals. He was a great student, and his dream was to be a Navy SEAL. But after a health crisis, his life was hijacked by OxyContin. I didn't see it coming, and neither did anybody else. Remembering back to February 2016, John and I lived in Hong Kong, and Christopher came to visit by himself. John had to go on a business trip. I know, imagine that. It was crazy. But I got to have Christopher one-on-one by myself, and I took him everywhere to meet every friend I had in Hong Kong, because we lived there 7 years, so we had a lot of friends. And we did everything. We went out, bought him an outfit, we went to the horse races, went to the movies, got foot massages. By the way, that's the best place to get them. And he was grounded, like I'd never seen him before, super grounded. He looked good. He'd been working out. And I said, you know what? This is the best one-on-one time I've had with my son as an adult. We then flew to Cambodia, and I was super excited to take him there because our other sons had already gone and Christopher hadn't gone yet. And so we took him to see the Rice Academy, and we went to the temple, and he got to meet everybody. And one night we were sitting on the hotel balcony, and I mean, it was hot. When I say hot, not Atlanta hot, I'm talking 100-degree hot. And he looks at me and he said, Mom, I get it why you love it here so much. I get it. I was like, okay, you know, he just shared so many little things with me too. Simple things. Like, Mom, my favorite color is not green anymore, it's purple. I was like, okay, note to self. Might wonder why everything's purple in this room tonight. But just little things that we talked about. Sorry, I gotta move my page. And by the way, I wanna say this, I meant to say it up front. Tonight is not about perfection, it's about connection. And that's what I'm about. So if I stumble, if I cry, whatever, it's not about that. Because it's nervous. The last thing he did before going to bed that night is he bent down and he gave me an incredible tight hug. He said, Mama, thank you for always being there for me. I love you. And those are the last words I heard from Christopher, because the next morning at 6 a.m., I found my son. And the reason that I share this with everybody in this room tonight is because it did not have to happen. The pain that I've never experienced before, that I didn't even know existed, and I can't explain it. But I can explain the fire that's inside me now. It's a fire that I cannot control. I've been speaking anytime anyone will listen, whether I have a microphone or not, I need to warn people. I need to get the word out. I got to save lives. I got to save other mamas from ever feeling this excruciating pain. And I thought, well, how am I going to do that? How do I get to the masses? And that's when I decided to write a book. And through my research, the stars connected, and I met Dennis Ross. And for the last 18 months, we've been working side by side for the birth of this book. Thank you so very much, Dennis Ross. You helped me put pain to pen to paper to purpose, and I thank you. So, initially, the book's focus, of course, was on Christopher and I's opioid journey, of course, but the book became so much more. It took a life of its own. There are a lot of words in a book, obviously. Let me tell you about the book, the words that matter in my book. Vulnerability, understanding, compassion, honesty, forgiveness, forgiving others, and forgiving yourself. Stigma, addiction, pain, suffering, positivity, hope, and most importantly, love. So if you're wondering, is this book for you? Maybe you don't know anyone suffering substance misuse disorder, and maybe you've never lost anyone in this way. But the book transformed into tools that will help you no matter what challenges you're facing in your journey, because everybody has them. The book allows you to reflect on your own journey. It's about life itself. Being vulnerable and not trying to look good in your book made me reflect on what I've always perceived as my mistakes in life are actually learning lessons. So it was time to stand naked in the sun, if you will. So ultimately, what do I want out of reading my book, besides the obvious about the opioid epidemic? That no matter what you are facing in your life, no matter what your challenges are, you have the power within to keep flying. Thank you.
Why should you carry Narcan? For the law enforcement officer suffering an accidental exposure while on duty. For your student who's been struggling at school and hasn't returned from the bathroom in over 20 minutes. For your neighbor whose son is lying unconscious on their dining room floor. For your best friend from high school who grew up in an abusive home and was given her first drug from her parents. For your dog who ate a thrown bag of heroin on your daily walk. For your daughter who was raised in a perfectly normal home, but still turned to drugs. For the little boy who will never see his parent again. For the teenage girl who was experimenting at a party. For your best friend's brother, who they love unconditionally, no matter how many times he's been to rehab. For your grandma, who forgot how much of her pain medication she took. For your toddler, when you accidentally left the pain medication on the table. For the boy at the party who didn't know his marijuana was laced in fentanyl. For humanity. For all of our children that we have lost. For people suffering substance use disorder. Why should you carry Narcan? So you can save a life.
Tonight, we are here to change how the world views addiction. If everyone can please find their purple glow sticks, we would like to now break the stigma around addiction for those who have passed and those who are currently struggling by breaking our glow sticks. Please hold your glow sticks up and count down with me. 3, 2, 1.
That's beautiful. I'm Chase, Christopher's brother. This is Kyron, Christopher's best friend. We made a song back in 2018 called Remember Me in honor of my brother. I want to share it with y'all tonight. Mama, I love you.
Where do we go when we die? Questions we all wonder why. Anger we curse in the sky, hiding behind our disguise, accusing and pointing a finger. I know that you fly with the angels. I know the Father has got you, but I can't help but feel this anger. I'm trying to be brave, but everyone breaks. A brother is someone no one can replace. I wish I could hug you and look at your face, but all I got's memories I can't erase. I feel like I'm stuck and I'm running in place. Please, just give me a sign, get me out of this space. Shouting to my brother in the sky. Ever since you left, I wonder why. you put in my brain. I know what you want me to say. Remain positive, but you've been gone too long, yeah. To see you one more time. Peace of mind, I know you by my side. To my brother, I love you, brother. I know that you still with me, blocking these snakes, trying to get me. Wherever I go on my path, I know that you got my back. My brother, I gotta thank you. Every day I celebrate you. A son has returned to his father. I got a guardian angel. Shouting to my brother in the sky. Ever since you left, I wonder why. I know one day we'll meet again. Just promise you'll remember me till then. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, I'm Chase. This is my brother Kyron. We are Black White. Black White. We've got so much to come. Thank you all for being here tonight and sharing this moment with us. And if we could get a big, big, big round of applause for Mama Dukes for being so vulnerable and sharing this with us. Let's go. Thank you. And now we're going to sing Happy Birthday to Christopher. Happy birthday to you. Let's go, get a clap. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Christopher. Yeah. Happy birthday to you. Thank y'all.
Now we ask everybody to reflect in a 1-minute moment of silence while we finish looking at all the pictures of Christopher. There is no preparation in life for the loss of a child. You still celebrate birthdays, mourn the dates of passing, or memorial services. You're expected to recover or get better by some, like some illness, but you never do. It's never the same. You don't recover. You just make it. You search for meaning, maybe channeling grief into something more productive, a way to make a difference, and protect others from what you've experienced. Cammie's journey continued recently to Washington, D.C., where she attended a meeting sponsored by the Drug Enforcement Agency with several hundred people in the room, all of whom had lost children to drug overdose. Cammie did her thing. She networked, made connections, and left with several new best friends who had experienced the same tragedy and are now bonded in the same passion and purpose to make a difference. They come from California, Arkansas, Ohio, Kentucky, Illinois, Tennessee. And by the way, a number of them were in Washington, D.C. yesterday, marching to focus the attention on the war on fentanyl. And they're here today in the front row, and I'd like them to stand and be recognized.
Whew. Okay, everybody take a deep breath. Yes. Ah. That was very special, though. And all of our children are in this room right now, I promise you that. They're right here with us. Okay, so we're going to have some respite now, and we're going to talk about solutions that we had to bring out and show you the pain because it's real. So we didn't have a choice to do what we did because we want you to feel what's going on in our country so that it doesn't happen to you. So on this day, back in 2018, is the day that we launched Christopher Wolf Crusade. We launched it on Christopher's birthday in 2018. I asked John, I said, would you be the CFO with the description of never saying no? Yeah, it's true. He's done pretty good with that, actually. I got to give him credit. Most of you that know John, you know that numbers speak to him in a magical way, too, so it's way above my pay grade. So he's been amazing, and I can't even explain all the work that he's had to do over the last few months, things you would not even imagine John Rice ever doing, bless his heart. And he never complained one time. He has been my rock since day one and has supported me in every single thing that we've wanted to do here. I thank you, and I honor you, John Rice. So we put together an advisory board, and there's many of them here tonight. And I would like to show you all these people. These are really, really smart people in the healthcare world that really care about this issue. And they have really helped us with their wisdom and guidance. And so I really wanted to take a second to thank the advisory board for CWC. So we decided, because there's so many swim lanes that you can pick, unfortunately, when you're dealing in this world. And we knew we wanted to be in prevention to stop it before it starts. And so why not pick the hardest thing in the world to do? Let's create a new position, create it and fund it, a new position in healthcare. I wanted to provide everything that Christopher did not have in his many times in the hospital. There's a person missing on the healthcare team. You think about our society, we use coaches for everything. Imagine a sports team without a coach. Even a tennis player. Imagine a tennis player without a coach. There is every kind of coach now. There's a dietitian coach, an executive coach. There's also, recently I found out, a coach for babies to sleep. Elizabeth, wherever you are. Yeah, there's coaches for everything. But when you're in a health crisis, you're in the hospital. If you're in the hospital, you have anxiety, you have stress, probably PTSD, if you had a car accident, whatever. But there's no coach. There's no coach to help you. There's no coach to guide you through that health crisis. Now, in children's hospitals, there is a position. It's called a child life specialist. There's 6,000 of them around the country. If you tried to take the child life specialist out of a children's hospital in Atlanta, Donna Hyland will come after you because they're so critical to helping. But when you're 18 and over, nothing. So, we started a new position. Next slide. And by the way, the clicker's not working. So we're talking about perfection, not in connection, all that. There's no clicker, so I'm going to be doing this all night, and that's okay. I'm not stressing over it. Or that little echo. So I have to thank two people first before we get started. The president of Grady Hospital, John Hobart. If you were not like a believer in innovation when we came through Jocelyn Baker, the president of Grady Foundation, they immediately embraced what we wanted to do at Grady Hospital. Now, we wouldn't be here without that. However, our champion on the ground is Dr. Mara Shanker. She is the chief of orthopedic trauma at Grady, and she's going to come up here and join me on this stage now. Dr. Mara, there you are. And one of our newest life care specialists, Anaya Daniels, and we're going to share with you a little bit about this role. Yeah, the far seat, and then Anaya, and then I need a chair. Okay, thank you. I'm going to. Thank you. Hi. So, can you scoot your chair just a little bit? Because I got to feel connected over here. I'm like, we're so far apart. Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay, so I wanted to start with Dr. Schenker, I'm going to call you Mara because I call you Mara. But she is the chief, and she's incredible. But tell them about how we met and what happened.
So first, you can hear me. First thing I want to say is this has been Cammie's dream from the minute that I met her, and this is just, I had no doubt at that moment that this was going to turn into something, but this is incredibly special for me too. And so the Cammie and John and everybody who's with them, their family, they're just incredible people. So we met. I was about 4 years ago. I was fairly new at being a real full-fledged doctor, and had decided to practice at Grady Memorial Hospital, which, if you're not familiar with it, is the second busiest orthopedic trauma center in the country, about to be probably the first. So I was just learning how to be a physician. I read the book Dreamland. And I went back and I started talking to all of my colleagues and to my nurse practitioner and to my PA, and I was like, hey, I'm reading this book. I trained not that long ago, but it seems like it's a very different climate. Sort of where do I fall into the spectrum in terms of how willing am I to prescribe additional pain medication? And they were like, oh, you sort of give the most. And if I would have guessed going into that, I would have said I gave the least, because I truly felt like, I was somewhat restrictive in terms of my prescribing, but we didn't have a plan for how much pain medications the patients were discharged on. And when a patient comes in, they're in pain, you want to help them. And my only tool that I had at that point was to give them more pain medication. I thought I was legitimately helping them. And so that sort of made me sort of click, and I started talking about it a little bit more. And one of the faculty development committee members asked me to give a talk at the Grady Faculty Development Lecture Series. And I got up there and I said, hey, I didn't realize I was part of the problem. I now recognize that I am, and we need to do better, but I didn't have a really great solution for what that was. And we finished, a bunch of people came up to me, and then Cammie, it was raining, it was a horrible, horrible day, and Cammie sort of came up and beelined to me, and she was like, would you like to have dinner? And I was like, sure, I don't know who you are, but that sounds fine. I like dinner. And so,
actually, I stalked her, I swear. Yeah, so that's exactly what happened. So I'm going to ask Anaya to first interviewed. Of course, we're interviewing on Zoom now, right? Back in the COVID days and so forth. So I'm interviewing you, and I'm going to share with you now. You had me at the first sentence that came out of your mouth, but when I asked her, I said, well, why are you interviewing to be a life care specialist? Why do you want to be a life care specialist? Share with them what you told me.
As a recent graduate of Spelman College, one of the things I told Cammie that was really important to me, since I was a little girl, I knew I wanted to be a physician. And as a life care specialist, I thought that there was two really important things for me, which is that I would learn more about addiction and pain management. And these are things that can sometimes lack in medical school curriculums. And this was really important to me as someone who wants to be a physician. I felt that that would make me a better care provider in the future.
She had me at that. I was like, done. Come on. Next slide, please. Next slide. The care coach, so the technical term for the position with all the grants, the millions of grants that we write, when we're at the patient, it sounds so clinical. And when you come in and you introduce yourself as a care coach, I'm here to care for you. I'm not here to poke and prod you. I'm here to care for you. It really brought the boundaries down and a connection with the patients. So we're life care specialists, but to the patients, we're care coaches. And really, if you look at this wheel, which you are going to have one when you leave here tonight, imagine that. But when you look at this wheel, this is our blueprint for what the care coach does. And I'm going to actually ask Anaya to go over a couple of them. But when you're dealing with somebody's pain, not one size fits all. So what's great about the care coach is they do a patient assessment right off the bat and understand what this person is going to need to help them, right? So Anaya, would you just take a couple of them just to highlight what you do?
Okay, I would say the three most important for me when I'm dealing with a patient would be the three at the top. So I would start with the pain medication education. That's really important for patients because most of the time when we enter their rooms, they don't even understand the medications they're on or what the symptoms associated with that medication can do to them. So we educate them on the prescribed medication that they're taking and how to also taper off of these medications in the future. Next, we have the personalized pain management plan. So we give them non-pharmacological ways to deal with their pain and come up with a pain plan for their medication. And then next is that mental wellness skills. So we equip them with some distraction techniques to deal with that pain that don't include medication. And one of the things that we do is called the Community Resiliency Model, which is formulated from the Trauma Resource Institute. And before even coming up on this stage, I was dealing with some stress and anxiety, thinking about having to talk and public speak. And so one of the techniques that I like to do with patients is called grounding. And so when I was in my chair, I was catching myself grabbing the sides of my chair and just squeezing that nervous energy into that chair so I could come up here and kind of face this. So we give them those techniques to kind of take on this, the stress that life throws their way and how to deal with that don't require them to take medication.
And I'd just like to add, I'm really proud of the life care specialists because Emory received a grant to train frontliners on these techniques that she's talking about, and they've trained, I believe, over 100 frontliners at this point, the life care specialists have. Nurses, right? Nurses, doctors, great. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so Mara's just going to touch lightly on the clinical trial. It's amazing we were able to continue to do it through COVID, and the silver lining was that patients were not allowed to see any of their loved ones. So there was a girl who was 26 years old, had her leg amputated, and couldn't see her mother and father. So I told the life care specialist, Bailey, I'm like, do not leave her, stay with her. I think you spent hours, but so it really was a silver lining that we were able to continue this trial during COVID. But Mara will just touch on how we got that started.
Sure, so we actually started the trial at the very beginning of COVID, and so that's really to the Grady leadership credit that we were able to get the life care specialists into the hospital because we didn't realize how much of a benefit it had not only to the patients but also to the healthcare workers who, at this time are very stressed. There's not a lot of nurses around, and so this has been a huge help to them as well to have some of the life care specialists. Next slide, please. So we have had now 2 studies in the orthopedic trauma population at Grady. Very shortly, we will be expanding to include the sickle cell clinic, which is going to be a slightly different pain management group because we're going from more acute, I was in a car accident yesterday pain, to somebody who's been dealing with sickle cell pain for their entire life. And so this will likely change. The results of part of this will differ from the study to the next. But this is just evaluating our population. So about 3/4 identified as belonging to a racial or ethnic minority. About 1/4 of this group was uninsured. 53% were what we classify as moderately to severely injured. And if you aren't familiar, the orthopedic surgeons are one of the highest prescribers of opioids. And so this is a group that has, in the last line, you can see that there was some financial insecurity and food insecurity. And so this is a group that may not have a lot of resources. And the life care specialist has been, and they come in with a very significant injury. And so they were all seen and evaluated by our life care specialist, the boots on the ground. Next slide, please. And so our initial assessment, about 1/3 to even a little bit higher than that, depending on the study, was at increased risk for opioid substance misuse. And we used a couple of different ways to evaluate this. Number one is one that's been published. It's called the Opioid Risk Tool. And it's something that's a known assessment that's not routinely done in the clinical care setting. But then another important one that we used was one that we designed, which is called the Opioid Literacy Tool. And it's basically a health literacy version that's specific to opioids. So can you take out of this list of 10 medications, which of these is an opioid? And the vast majority of people cannot answer that question. And so that's people who even score highly on a health literacy assessment. 10% had a substance use disorder, and 1 in 5 patients was referred somewhere else for a co-occurring condition. And so these are our prior substance abuse history, financial insecurity, food insecurity, transportation insecurity, mental health, PTSD. And so these are things that as the providing physician I would not have recognized, and our life care specialist identified that, and so 20% were sent on to other healthcare providers in the system. Next slide, please. And the one key thing that we noticed, and we're still in the process of evaluating all of this data, is that the patients who were seen by the life care specialist were sent home with less opioids. And I think the key to that is they have something else. I don't have something else. Like, I have medications. I was trained with medications going through medical school and residency, but the life care specialist offers something that I didn't have and that I don't have, time and expertise when it comes to the side effects of opioids, and most importantly, alternatives for how to handle their pain, because they have real pain, but I don't know what to do about that, and these guys have been wonderful with that.
Next slide. So I wanted to talk briefly. We know that we had to, and boy, have I learned a lot about healthcare and data and Epic and REDCap, and oh my God. It's brutal. That's all I got to say about that. But how do you capture what's the real? The data is important, and I'm not being disrespectful to the data. We love the data. We love the data. However, how do you put real stories in a grant? How do you put when a woman is bawling saying, "Could you please get my care coach back in here?" How do you get when a nurse, the charge nurse, introduces the care coaches on the floor to traveling nurses, because they're all new nurses on the floor? These people are your lifeline. When they told me that, I was literally bawling. Like, the nurse said that, the nurse said that. Are you saying the nurse said that you were the lifeline? It was so amazing, because they don't have the time. It's not that they don't want to take the time. They don't have the time to sit with a patient for an hour and find out that there's domestic violence, or there's food insecurity, or they don't have a home to go to. And so it's capturing those stories that is really difficult to put in a grant. I'll just say for that. Now, this patient, I'm kind of standing in the way here. Again, I wanted everything that Christopher didn't have. And these patient care packages, I'm going to let you talk about this, Anaya, but tell them the favorite thing out of the bag, because I was surprised by this.
The favorite things that patients really enjoy out of our patient care packages, there's two. So first is the adult coloring book. They really like that tool. It's something they can use to distract them from their pain, or the fact that they're in the hospital in these four walls. They kind of get tired of that. And also the blanket. That's something that we'll see patients bring back to their follow-up appointments. And even you'll walk in their room sometimes and they're like snuggled up with their blanket. And so that's really nice to see that they're really using these things as comfort tools that we provide to them.
We also have Narcan that we send home with them, an opioid disposable bag, and so again, the other key thing is the follow-up, right? Is to follow up with a patient in increments to see, are you off your pain medication? How are you doing? And here's all these other techniques of things you can do for pain besides take a pill, right? So it's really changing a mindset. Okay, next slide. So our next steps, I know Mara talked a lot about the sickle cell, which we're super excited about. I'm going to take a second to tell you about Mercer, and because this was amazing. So there's a woman here tonight, Lynn, wherever you are, Lynn. She always introduces me to everybody. She just does virtual email intros all the time. Love you, Lynn. And Lynn sent our PowerPoint to Dean Sumner at Mercer. And I get this call in the morning from Dean Sumner, and we talk, and she's like, "Can you come down to Mercer?" I was like, "Oh, yeah. So I get down there, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the words. She said, "Do you realize that you have the solution for rural communities in Georgia for healthcare?" I was like, "Could you please say it again really slow, and I can get my phone out so I can record it for people?" When I say this woman, I get on a Zoom call with her, and she ends every Zoom call with, "You're never getting rid of me, Cammie. We're going to get this money. We're going to get it somewhere. We're going to get it somehow. We're going to get this money." And so she inspires me. Her team inspires me. And she's teaching me about rural health. And there are literally more things at our health clinic in Cambodia than there are at some of the rural communities in Georgia. And that's a serious comment there. And so we are really focused on getting care coaches and hiring in those rural communities. So not only that, we're giving jobs to people. And it doesn't have to be a 4-year degree. You need compassion, empathy, a listening ear, an understanding to be a care coach. Now, all of our care coaches have graduated college and they're data queen and king and all that. But it doesn't have to be that way. We need care coaches that are going to take care of the patients. And so we're super excited about the rural strategy. We're also doing telehealth moving up forward. We'll actually be able to talk to patients before a surgery. All the trial that we've done up to this point, it's somebody that's already had a gunshot wound, a car accident. And so they've already had surgery. So we're going to get on the forefront before they have surgery. And then we also got a grant at the MSK building, so we're super excited about that. So those are our next steps. And I think now, next slide, we had an amazing research team. And Mara, I would like for you to talk a little bit about the residents that we had that have learned now all about pain management and the opioids.
Oh yes, our residents are now, they ask for the life care specialist by name to come and help with pain management after surgery, because it's been such a huge void from your end for sure as the parent, and as the patient, but from our end too. This gives us an additional resource. So our residents are all now very familiar with the life care specialist team.
And so we would like our research team to please come up here on stage real quick and get an applause, because you guys have been amazing. Nick, we could not have done this without you either, buddy. Fingers sleeping on Nick.
So we have Bailey and Carter, two of our life care specialists. Dr. Nick Giordano, who's an assistant professor in the School of Nursing. He is our main man when it comes to grant writing and keeping me honest to deadlines, and this rest of the team.
We get on a weekly call at 8 o'clock every Wednesday morning, and everybody shows up, including her. Every Wednesday.
I'm halfway through my day by then.
Yeah, right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Picture. Thank you. I gotta think what's next. What am I supposed to do? I don't know. Okay, my piece of paper's missing from up here. Like I said, not perfection, connection. Bear with me. Jay, where are you? I'm just going to go off. I'm not reading. Okay, this woman, Jay Watson, yeah, she's going to tell you a little bit about herself when she gets up here. So Jay, you're going to join me, but I just want everyone to know, like, I admire this woman so much. She's been a role model for me for several years since the day I met her. And they did an episode on Fantastic Mind, and they did a whole series on opioid epidemic, and she interviewed me and made me feel so comfortable, and her husband, Kenny, just so professional and making me feel comfortable. And she agreed to come up here and talk about the book, and then we'll just have a chit chat. Can we speak a little closer? Yeah. Yeah, I want to be closer.
First of all, I look very happy. Yes, in that photo, because I was at a Waffle House when it was taken. That's why I'm smiling. My husband took it. You and I have a great history. Mm-hmm. We put you in our special that we did on the opioid crisis. Yes. And you were one of the stars, I'm sorry to say, of that show, right? So Kemi was with us in Your Fantastic Mind, and our show's now syndicated, airing in 200 markets in 43 states, and her episode has been seen around the country.
Thank you.
And you know, it's funny, when I read the book to prepare for tonight, I was just texting her like we do, telling her everything I thought about it, and that's when I learned that I was one of the only people who had read the book. I think I would have put a lot more thought into my... I have a voice. I couldn't believe that I was one of the only people to read it. So what a privilege. Okay, I want to dig right into it. I came with my notes, okay?
Good, because I don't know where mine went.
I know. Well, this is good. I know what I want to talk about. So when I was reading the book, it was like when I met you. I have, through my journalism career and now here at Emory Brain Health and doing this show, sat with a lot of parents who've lost their children. And when I met you, I saw the purpose through your pain. And so what I was thinking about was the 14 years that you went through this with Christopher, and then the years since. What was it like to try to write this? What was it like for you? Because I know that you had your own trauma in going through this.
I did. It's hard to explain, honestly, the journey, but I got a book by David Kessler. It was called The Sixth Stage of Grief, and its purpose. And so I think I skipped a few stages, and I went right to that. Like I explained earlier, it's been and I know these mamas can relate, it's a fire within you that God puts there. I think our children sacrifice so others can live. And I think it's our duty and our responsibility to help so that no other mother has to feel that pain. And so I think the purpose, because if I did not have CWC and Bodie Browning as my grandson, because he literally brought me back to life, I don't know what it would have looked like. I would have been in fetal position and I'm probably not doing very well. So it gave me purpose and meaning for my life.
I want to talk about stigma because I think it's one of the big reasons that we can't move forward, right? Mm-hmm. Every 9 minutes, someone dies from a drug overdose. You shared with me numbers this week that then I saw everywhere in all the news reports, which are in Georgia, the number of young people who died from fentanyl-laced drug overdoses spiked by 800% in the last year. So in times when you and I have talked and I say the word overdose, you say the word murder.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
When I was up at the DEA, they gave us an opportunity to speak if you wanted the microphone, and of course I did. And I said, why do you keep calling it overdose? It's not taking too much of something. It is premeditated murder. It's murder. It's poisoned. It is poisoned. Drugs have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years of experimenting drugs, and the difference is it's poison now. You can't experiment on a college campus or wherever you are aimed by getting something from the street. So yeah, I believe 100% that it is murder.
So I hope you'll bear with me. I want to do something related to stigma because I was looking up words that are kind of synonyms for stigma. And I just want to throw a couple out at you. And if you would, if you have an experience to share with me that relates to this word, or even what comes to mind when I say it, okay? Mm-hmm. So the first word is judgment.
Mm-hmm. It took me 2 years to say Christopher overdosed. 2 years. Because I wanted my son to have a respectable death. I didn't want them to look bad at my son because he was not a bad person. He wasn't that person that people think of when you think of addiction.
The next word is shame.
I think part of the process for treatment is broken in the country when you ask somebody to get up and stand up and say, I'm Christopher and I'm an addict. It's like saying, I'm a loser, I'm not worth anything. People don't stand up and say, hi, I'm Sue and I have cancer. You know, it's so much judgment, and I think parents, we think it's a reflection on us to look good, that, oh, God, somebody's going to think I'm a bad parent. I've done something wrong. I've done something, I'm not as good a parent as her because my kid's struggling. And so it's, again, that looking good thing and that judgment that people have on people. And the silence is what's killing people. Mm-hmm. It's the silence. We have to be able to talk and connect with it as a human beings to get help. And if you're hiding it under the rug, it's not a good thing. And I did the same thing. I'm guilty of it.
The last word I want to bring up to you is blame.
I had to forgive myself. I think we tried everything that we could do, and we had all the resources, and we still couldn't save his life. And woulda, coulda, shouldas just don't work. And I wasn't going to share this, but if I'm going to walk the walk and I'm going to talk the talk and all that stuff, I've never shared it publicly, but a year ago in May, my brother, he was in recovery for years and he was doing really well, and COVID was super hard on him, and I was kind of more like his mom, and he has a lot of anxiety, and he thought he was getting a Xanax from a friend, and that Xanax was poisoned, and my brother was murdered a year ago. And I've never talked about it because I'm like, oh, so now you lost your son and your brother? Like, what's going on in your family? Like, who are you? What's, you know, and it's so wrong. It's so wrong. My brother was murdered. My dad couldn't talk about it at our funeral. And I'm sorry, Dad, I'm bringing it up. I hope you're okay. And somebody squeezed my dad, whoever's sitting next to him. But he was poisoned, Jay. Yeah. He took a Xanax for anxiety, and it was laced with fentanyl. And so I've lost Christopher, and I lost my brother. So I know that I'm supposed to be speaking out and screaming out and ringing this alarm.
I'm really proud of you for telling this right now. I mean, really. You are walking the walk. All right, we're going to take a brief breather from that, because what I will tell you is I was fascinated by, you did something really innovative in your book I've never seen. I want you to talk about it. I'm going to show everyone. You talk, I'll show. I'll be the little book model. So the QR code.
Okay,
the end of all these chapters.
Okay, well, nobody knew, well, I didn't know what a QR code until COVID came and I wanted to eat at a restaurant. I figured it out really quick. Wait a minute, how do I do this? I need to order food. And I was sitting in a restaurant and I was like scanning it, and I'm like, you know, our website and all the stuff we're trying to do to try to keep up on the numbers, because it went up 800% this month, right? And I was thinking, how does this book stay so it doesn't become stagnant? And I thought, oh my God, I can put a resource library in the book, in the back, and give resources for people of how to find a treatment center and how to talk to your kids about drugs. And, you know, my brain was going a million miles an hour, and I said, and if it's QR code, then I can constantly keep that updated and I don't have to reprint it. And then, of course, we had to take it a step farther, and I'm like, wow, well, what if I just added a little content, here's the thing. My goal is to reach masses, only to save lives, right? Yeah. And so if we have as much content as we possibly can, a lot of people don't like to read. So maybe they would scan the video and watch a video, and maybe it would encourage. Smart. So I just thought it was a new way to market a book, and that's why we did the book trailer that you saw at the beginning, because on social media, you've got to grab young people. You've got to have something that's going to catch them. And so that was the whole reason. I was like, well, they're doing movie trailers. Why don't we do book trailers? We should do book trailers. Maybe that would encourage more people to read if they saw a trailer on a book. So that was the reason we did the trailer and the QR codes, and so I'm excited about it. It's just
it worked really well. You filled in things that I was thinking about at the end of a chapter, and then I would do the QR code, and there you were filling it in on camera. I just thought it was incredibly clever and smart, and I think this idea is going to be poached like crazy. It was a great idea.
Thank you.
We are just a couple more questions. We're coming to the end of our program, everyone. There's something that you and I have talked about. You have said to me that the silver lining in losing Christopher, which even saying silver lining with losing Christopher seems to me an impossibility, but you have said that losing your son has made you a better person.
It has. Because I do this every day. This is all I do. This is all I want to do. So yeah, I think it's not about me anymore. It's about me helping other people to not stop it before it starts. Yeah.
All right, I want to end this by you telling me some of the most beautiful or kind things that you have experienced since you lost Christopher.
Question. Okay. My girlfriend Lisa invited me to go to Eatonton, Georgia, and to speak. I was like, I'm on. Drove down to Eatonton, and it was one of first kind of. I mean, I'd given some speeches, but Christopher's face was really big next to me, and I go back and sit down, and this little elderly woman, kind of not super old, but she just kind of wobbled over to my table a little bit. And she hands me this little piece of paper, this little note, and I opened it up, and she said, "I will never forget Christopher's face. Love, Dottie." And it was such a little tiny thing that meant so much to me, because then I thought, you know what? It was just affirmation that I need to keep sharing the story. It's making a difference. It's listening. It was kind of a little thing, but little things can mean a lot, at times. And I'll say the other thing, it's just kind of emotional, but the blessing of all of this is that I was introduced to a woman who has lost 3 children, and you can't understand it unless you've lost a child. You just don't get it. You try, and I know it's hard to be there for me, and I know it's hard. But like us mamas, we just immediately, it's a crazy thing. It's like we connected instantly, and we love each other instantly. But this woman taught me to have a different relationship, a higher relationship with God, and got me out of the trenches. And this journey has been a ride. It's not been an easy ride. I mean, it's been a ride. And she was there for me. It doesn't matter what time I called her. You call me anytime, day or night. And she loves me unconditionally. And I honor you, Miss Graham Altina. And I would not be sitting in this chair if it was not for your love, for you. She's awesome.
She is.
Everybody should have a Grandma Tina. Sorry if you don't. And I'm not sharing. Well, I do share, but.
I want to thank you for your vulnerability and your honesty, for pursuing what you're doing, and for fighting for other children. So my last question for you is pretty easy, and it's kind of cool. You're going to explain what is this final video that we're all about to watch.
Yes. Well, first I'm going to thank you, because she said, "Give me that book. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it cover to cover." And a lot of people, I've done a lot of interviews, and they read a top first paragraph. You read it.
It was awesome. You guys are going to love it. I'm being completely honest. It's the kind of book that people need to read. It's the kind of book that you'll share.
Well, she was texting me, and I turned into an 11-year-old little girl. I was screaming, John, Jay likes the book. Jay likes the book. Oh my God, Jay likes the book. I'm so excited. Okay, so one of the things, we're always looking for innovative things for the care coaches. We have to think out of the box when we're dealing with pain. So we had them certified with a company called Athena that does music therapy, because we are firm believers that music heals and helps. The life care specialist last week just got final certification by a company called Athena, and I met the owners, and Angelo, I can put the next slide up so I can say his name, Angelo Molino. Where's that slide? He is an amazing composer, wrote a song, and ironically, I was at the Buckhead Club watching him talk about music therapy, and he plays this music video, and I was like, wow, this is really beautiful, and I looked down to the program, and the name of the song was The Flight. I was like, what? I was like, what? So he was supposed to play on this stage in a grand piano, and the stage was small, so we were like, let's call up at the Atlanta Symphony. They let us film at the Atlanta Symphony, and Angelo was very nice to play for us. He also did the song Transition for when we had the Mama Angels. That was Angelo as well. So please enjoy this beautiful, beautiful song by Angelo, and then we will go upstairs and we will be happy and hope. Thank you.